tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
All right, welcome to the Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Studios. Just go to samtripoli.gold, use the promo code tinfoil, and you too can get in on the precious metals game sent right to your house for as little as $50 a month. Thanks for tuning in to Tinfoil Hat. We definitely appreciate it. We have a great show for you. We've been on a nice little run lately, and this is going to be absolutely perfect. He's an investigator into the esoteric. I'm very excited to talk to him. Please welcome Walter Bosley. How are you, sir?
Great. Good to be here, Sam. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor and a privilege. For our listeners who may not be familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Sure. I spent several years in an investigative field, and I started a small publishing company in 2002. A couple of years later, decided to focus on my writing and publishing, and that's what I've been doing for, my gosh, over 20 years now, pursuing this weird stuff that I find interesting. I have a channel at YouTube, the Walter Bosley channel, and also a website, walterbosley.com.
All right, all those links will be below in the description, so click and support Walter. We appreciate him coming on the show. I guess the word you used was weird. I think that's the word you used. I just find it such an interesting time because all of the weird stuff, which I love, the weird stuff, seems to be coming out in the from the shadows, being more and more prominent. I think it's a combination of the internet has allowed us all to communicate with each other, compare notes, and you know, start to have an understanding about what maybe might actually be happening. And it's also this thing that we've talked about in the show where I think the old gods are tired of sitting in the shadows, and I think they want to come out and play. And they've been playing this long game of chess where they've, you know, been the secret hand manipulating everything, you know, getting everybody to fight in these Abrahamic religions. And reality, Zoroastrianism, Babylonian stuff is all starting to come to the forefront, and I don't know if I think a lot of us are ready for it. I don't know if the everyday person has the time to look into it, but I find it to be interesting. And once you look into that, you things start to click.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you're hitting the nail on the head. It's to put a finer point on it, it's what an associate of mine, Joseph Farrell, calls the Yahwist monotheisms. And I have personally come to think that they've really led the West down a road which is now destructive and just angry and dark. And you're right, the old things that were around before for a long time have been pushed aside. And in my view, they've been pushed aside long enough. And it's time for us to go back and look in these other directions.
Yeah, the symbol, I always tell people, there's always people want to get blame this group, that group, this group. I think all the Abrahamic religions, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, I'm a Christian, but I think the way we blame certain groups is just low-hanging fruit. And it's really easy to be like, these guys are doing everything. And I'm not saying they're not in positions of power, because I think they're there to take all the arrows so that we blame them and don't blame higher ups on the ladder. But when you study, let's say, Islam, they go around a black cube. I'm seeing many pictures of like Mark Levine. He has a black cube on his head, and everyone's like, "That's a blah 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 blah." I go, you can call that anything you want, but the oldest religion is the oldest god is Kronos. The oldest worship is Kronos and time, and that is a black cube. And now we're starting to see a lot of that come to the forefront.
Yes. Yeah. Well, these, as I like you call them, the Abrahamic religions, the Yahwist monotheisms, they've borrowed so much from the previous traditions that I find it difficult to buy into their shtick anymore. The way I look at the three is that, particularly in the Christianity segment and in Islam too, those are the two that are really heavy on the recruitment, conversion. We got to get more, we got to get more, follow us. They're like used car salesmen. And they're pointing across, don't buy your car from that guy, buy your car from us. Trust me, bro. The priesthood, and I'm talking religion across the board in general, any kind of priesthood, the priesthood is pushing the biggest trust me, bro scam, in human history. And I separate veneration of worship of God or spiritual worship from formal religion,
organized religion.
There's Christianity and there's churchianity.
Yeah.
And I want nothing to do. I haven't for a long time wanted anything to do with churchianity. Got no problem with a real Christianity. Just like there's bad elements in everything. It can be anything, and there's going to be bad elements that make the rest of it look bad. And
there's a positioning of them purposefully, I believe, to disconnect you from God.
Oh, sure.
I think that's a big role in it. And it's interesting times. I'm very excited to get into what you want to discuss. There's a real war going on the internet right now, which is insane to me, which is Hitler, good guy, bad guy. And I think it's ridiculous. Hitler, bad guy. I think I have my own reasons for that. It's not the thing that we've been sold. We can get into that later if you want. But so I know you want to come in and talk about Nazi technology, which I think is very interesting. So it's one of my favorite subjects. So yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, specifically, we're talking about this mysterious object called the bell or the Glocke. Okay.
Yes.
And there's a lot of mystery around it. There's, as might be expected, there's a lot of misguided, what I call hoo-ha about it. And there's reasons to question aspects of the lore about this thing. But at the same time, there's reasons to accept, well, somebody was doing something with this technology. Now, I did a little devil's advocate research into it because one of my good friends, Joseph Farrell, is one of the foremost authors on
he's just on. Yep. We love him.
Yeah, his work on the bell is awesome. So I lean towards the bell was a real thing, and we'll get into that. But being the experienced investigator, you have to look at the opposite side. And there's a video on my channel at YouTube, the Walter Bosley channel, in which I question the standard accepted story of the bell, because what's really interesting is, we first learn about it from the Polish journalist Igor Wachowski, and he learns about it from, I believe, a Polish intelligence officer. And what's interesting is what the Polish intelligence officer describes to him, the rotating cylinder, the counter rotation. There's one cylinder embedded in the other, and it's kind of bell-shaped, but one spins one direction and the other spins another, the opposite direction. And in between them is pumped this fluid, which may be supposed to be a solution of mercury. Some people say red mercury, but it doesn't have to be the red mercury. Now, what's interesting is what Wachowski is told resonates very much with a novel that came out in the 80s by Dean Koontz titled Lightning, in which Nazis travel through time into the present day, the 1980s, with a device that is just like what Wachowski was told Deglocka was, but it's laying horizontal so that it's like a tube they walk through to get through time. But it's essentially the counter rotation and the electric power and everything. So, I have to wonder, okay, did this Polish intelligence officer pull the wool over Wachowski's eyes with this BS story? And, he had read Koontz's novel a few years before and fabricated this thing about Deglocka, the bell, to Wachowski. And it was something that Koontz made up. Okay, that's a possibility because Koontz's novel indeed came out prior to, Wachowski hearing this story from the intelligence officer. However, we do have Kecksburg, the Kecksburg UFO.
Okay, can I ask something real quick? I don't want to get too far from it. So you said something about Nazis in the 1980s?
In the novel,
okay,
Lightning by Dean Koontz, Nazis use this device that is, for all intents and purposes, the bell, but laying horizontal, and it's hollow. They can pass through it, and it's
like a portal?
Like a portal, a time tube or a time tunnel, so to speak. And that's in the novel. Now, I haven't been able to get in touch with Dean Koontz yet to find out what inspired him, because the question is, okay, if the Polish intelligence officer learned about the bell from Wachowski's novel, did Koontz hear about, an actual device, and that's what inspired it?
Interesting.
So then,
real quick, sorry to cut you off. What I find interesting about this is the implication of time travel.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of the missing 411.
Oh, yes.
And how there is some weird, like all of these victims all have some weird characteristics that are very similar to them. And one of them is German ancestry and high intelligence and all that stuff. So like kind of goes interesting, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Are they time traveling? Are they grabbing people?
You have to wonder.
Yeah.
And that's why, even though I did this devil's advocate look and kind of reverse engineer, pulling the threads back, I still have come to a personal conclusion that yes, indeed, there's something to this Bell story. And somewhere along the way, Koontz heard about it and wrote his novel. And somewhere along the way, the Polish intelligence officer, learned something real about this device. And it's so there is, the further you go back, there is evidence that this thing really existed. And it's thought of shaped like an acorn, but essentially it's shaped like a bell when you really look at it.
Right. It's almost what the traditional, when you draw like a UFO, what people would think the UFO looks like.
Well, and we hear about, the witnesses claim that the Kecksburg UFO was floating, was hovering, right? And then you have this mysterious Army patrol shows up with a flatbed truck. They load it onto the truck, they cover it up, and they get out of there as quickly as possible. Well, how did they know it was going to be there? The implication there is that the Kecksburg UFO was very possibly the product of our continued engineering of a captured Nazi bell.
Like reverse engineering, kind of seeing it, doing it, and trying to reverse engineer it?
Not so much reverse engineer as continued, because remember, in Operation Paperclip, we got all these Nazi German scientists.
Yes.
And that would have included Kammler's team. Kammler is the scientist who, very mysterious about him, but he's the one who is believed and suspected to have been leading the project on the bell, Deglocka. So when we captured, these scientists, it's believed, it's suspected that we got our hands on an actual, bell, one of these bells, and we advanced it possibly to whatever the Kecksburg device was.
It's super interesting. I don't want to jump too ahead because I know you want to get into more talk on the Nazis, but we've had a deep dives into Martin Bormann and his role in Nazi Germany. And whenever anyone wants to lecture me on Nazi Germany, I'm like, well, what is your take on Martin Bormann? And then if they don't know anything about Martin Bormann, because to be honest with you, before we did the episode on it, I didn't know anything about Martin Bormann.
Right.
A
lot of people don't.
Yeah, and it's like he's so instrumental to just the whole story of Nazi Germany. But, there's this famous escape where they try to escape from Spain. I don't know are you going to get into that? I don't want to talk about if you're going to.
I don't get so much into those aspects of the Nazi survival thing. So yeah, go ahead. You mean the submarine?
Yeah, and there was going to be an exchange of technology.
Yeah,
and that the bell was the technology that they kind of used to allow them. Hey man, we'll give you this if you allow us to get to this port and get out of here. And I don't know if that might have been when they gave them the bell or something like that. But I find it super interesting.
Yeah, that could very well have been when it was done, or not, because remember we had Patton. They put together kind of the special unit with Patton's Third Army, and the 45th Infantry is in the mix, and members of the 45th Infantry, as they went deeper into Germany, were assigned to capture the special technology. So it could have been a unit of that group. We know that they went into I always pronounce this wrong, Thuringen Forest, where some scholars propose that the Nazi scientists were developing their own atomic bomb, right? And may have done some early tests, and that's where a lot of their deep secret laboratories were. So it could be that it was even flown here. We just don't know. We do know that the Kecksburg UFO behaved very curiously like what we're told about the bell. So, and then remember, Kecksburg was after the big mysterious 1958 alleged suspected breakthrough in anti-gravity technology. Because remember, anti-gravity research was in the public domain. It was talked about open source scientific journals. And then in 1958, suddenly a lid is clamped tightly down on any discussion of anti-gravity. Around the time T. Townsend Brown, of course, was on the scene doing some certain things. So there are scholars, I'm included in that. I think that they made some big anti-gravity breakthrough around 1958, and that's why it went secret. Now, this, of course, was 13 years after the end of the war. So did this breakthrough come through some type of continued engineering research with the captured Nazi bell? Because as we know, anti-gravity is part of the bell lore. So, that math kind of adds up there.
Yeah, we recently had somebody come on talking about, aircraft technology in the Civil War, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that. Can you go into that a little bit? Because I find that so fascinating.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure,
I find that, because, I have this theory, we're entering this kind of Palantir reality right now. Mm-hmm. And I have this theory based on psychic abilities. Johnny doesn't believe me, but based on my gut, that the drones in New Jersey were the part of this whole thing. And it was a test on data. How would people react to basically craft in the sky?
I think that's a very reasonable possibility. I think it definitely was some type of social experiment, in again, public reaction to what they were seeing. And, this would tell them, okay, let's take it to the next level. Look at what these drones can do as far as images in the sky. these days. I mean, there's the one where there's the King Kong climbing up the side of an actual skyscraper, and it's all drones. And of course, it's pinpoints of light, but there's the other stuff that's beginning to be even more fantastic.
And the understanding that we are getting 30-year-old technology, that DARPA's at least 3 decades before. So whatever they have is way more crazy than that, and they're just slow rolling it out.
Sure.
Guys, it's crazy out there. It's like we're all working more than ever. Okay. We have to make that money to pay them bills. But at the same time, you got to work out. And there's no better workout in a shorter amount of time than rowing. Let me tell you about our good friends at Hydro, okay? Listen, warm weather hits, and suddenly I'm juggling vacations, visitors, and zero routine. Hydro brings me back to that structure so I can get a quick, efficient workout that keeps me feeling grounded no matter what my calendar looks like.
Whether you're training hard or just trying to stay active, Hydro really meets you where you are. It's low impact, so it's easy on your joints, but it still gives you that perfect mix of strength and cardio. And if you're on the fence about it, and this is crazy, there's free shipping and a 30-day risk-free trial, and Hydro offers a full-year warranty. So honestly, you got no pressure. Just try it and see how it feels without any risk.
I use my Hydro. It's right over here in the studio. I use it a couple times a week, and I love it. So here's what we're going to do. We want you to skip the gym, not the workout. Stay on track with Hydro. For a limited time, go to hydro.com and use the promo code TINFOILHAT to save up to $475 off your Hydro. That's HYDROW.com, code TINFOILHAT. That to save up to $475. That's hydro.com, code TINFOILHAT. And we thank them for sponsoring the show. There's going to come a time where there's people who have crypto and there's people who don't have crypto. All right. And if you play it right, you can get into these cryptos early and make some good money. All right. That's why you got to check out our good friend James McMahon and Copy My Crypto. Let me tell you about Copy My Crypto. Guys, does it piss you off to watch crypto fly up in price for over a decade and you've still done nothing about it? It makes sense. Crypto is complicated and really boring. Well, here's the good news. You don't need to know a thing about crypto to make money like so many have. The CopyMyCrypto.com membership site shows you the exact cryptos that YouTuber James McMahon personally owns, which means you just copy him. It's like having a big brother that knows exactly what he's doing. You don't need to know a thing you don't need to know a thing about crypto or how to invest. You just simply copy along. So let me tell you about James. He runs the Crypto with James YouTube channel, which has so many more subscribers, and this says 54,000. It's way past that. Okay, he's got a ton of subscribers. In the summer of 2020, he told his viewers to buy 26 cryptos. Had you put $100 in each one, it went on to be worth over 123,000. Of the 26 cryptos, his top pick of the year, the one he singled out, Phantom, went up 692 times. That happens, man. That one call alone has retired a number of people, including guys in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify yourself. So if you'd like to join the over 2,800 members who copy James, then pause what you're doing and head over to copymycrypto.com/tinfoil. That's copymycrypto.com/TFH. Okay. You'll not only find proof of everything I've said, but our viewers get full access for just $1. Yes, you missed out on crypto. Buy a little bit here and there, buy a little bit here and there. But there's over 2 million other cryptos. Do you really think you miss out on all of them? Nope. Guys, don't waste time. Go to the site and read it. Once again, that's copymycrypto.com/TFH. It's ended money worries for so many. It just may do the same for you.
Well, the thing about the Civil War era airship technology that I've written about, and I think there's something to this. This I found when I was pulling the German thread. And why was I pulling the German thread? Because several years back, I learned about a gentleman named Charles Delschau. And Delschau was an immigrant from Germany to the United States in the 1850s. That's the decade before our Civil War. Okay. And he came to California. Now, he wrote these journals starting in 1893 and wrote them until his death in 1923. Okay. And in these journals, he claims that he came from Germany as a young man, was sent here to California by this mysterious German-based group called NYMZA. Okay. NYMZA. And they were some type of sponsor group for groups of guys experimenting with exotic technologies. And one particular group was called the Sonora Aero Club, and they were based in Sonora, California, just west of Yosemite. Have you heard of that?
No, well, no, I didn't, but that's kind of crazy that there's so many connections between Germany, Nazis, and then America.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's a definite 20th century reason for that. But these German immigrants were in California, according to Delschow, and they were building and actually flying these little contraptions they called Aeros, A-E-R-O, Aero, like aeroplane or aerostat, that kind of thing. And they called them Aeros, and they were little one-man things or 2 or 3 man little flying machines. This is in the 1850s, and these were not balloons. These were not hot air balloons. They had this interesting like turbine type of processed engine, okay, that they use their own secret ingredient fuel, this green liquid. And they were building these things, flying them in secret. They would hide them from, so nobody could find where, they would hide them in barns. The local farmers up there, they would hide them in barns. And then there was reportedly the leader, a guy named Peter Menace, the head German of this group of immigrants. He crashed his Aero and reportedly died. Okay. But we don't know that for sure. And that was the end of it. According to Delschow, that was the end of the Sonora Aero Club. NYMZA had sent a representative from Prussia, which was Germany. Before the unification. Yep. And they wanted the Aero Club to start building these things for military uses. And the Aero Club said, no, we're not going to do that. And it wasn't long after that the leader allegedly crashed and burned and died, and that was the end of the club. And no more flying technology.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
Now, my thread that I pulled on this technology that they were using, I found that in 1849, a gentleman by the name of Walter Rankine, who was one of the lead researchers into thermodynamics of his day. Okay, Walter Rankine had designed this turbine called the Rankine turbine, and when you look at a diagram of it, it is identical to the diagram that Delschow drew for the turbine of the propulsion engine of these flying aero machines of the 1850s. Now, Rankine publishes this in 1849, and just a few years later, according to Delschow, okay, you have these guys using this exact turbine design to power their flying machines, only they used a special green-colored liquid fuel, so to speak, that they called the soup. And, we don't know exactly how it was made or everything that was in it, although we're making some breakthroughs and we're going to be, I and some other researchers are going to be releasing what we think it was, the basis of that was. But it appears that they were using a very down-to-earth, human-developed turbine. They were just souping it up, no pun intended, with their own little touches, like this green fuel. And according to Delschow, they were getting, because he says he witnessed this, they were getting kind of an anti-gravity effect with this stuff. So after the leader allegedly crashes and dies, we get into the Civil War. And in the early years of the Civil War, this man
is so
Solomon
crazy,
Andrews,
right? This is so crazy. And then comes the Civil War. You're like, this is before the Civil War?
Yes. flying machines.
And do you think that their technology basically is the beginning of modern day aviation in terms of how we use, like, planes use their engines and stuff like that? Or
well,
is
the
this
airplane is a different thing.
Okay.
And the airplane was it turns out the airplane that we know is a more practical technology, obviously, because that's what mostly we use. And I think early on, as we'll see in my Civil War hypothesis, they saw a particular value in maybe keeping a lid to some extent on this anti-gravity
of
stuff.
course.
But see, I think the turbine and the using the special liquid, I think even all that was inspired by lost ancient technology, which is a whole other discussion.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Do you think we're getting in some occult, esoteric technology coming into play here?
We're getting into things that secret societies became aware of.
Okay.
Now, not that it was hocus pocus that made it work. It's just that, what it comes back to, Western academia wants to protect its turf. Okay. So anything not of Western civilization, particularly of the East, anything that your standard traditional historians do not want to sign off on must be suppressed, ridiculed. Don't take that seriously. Ignore the man behind that Eastern curtain. So it's just protecting of turf is what's going on there, is why it's suppressed. I think that there were societies dedicated to alchemy and advanced science that they studied, the old texts. They experimented with things that were described, going back into the Vedic texts.
Yes.
I think that's where basically some of this stuff we're talking about came from. And eventually, as we go through the story, it becomes, I think, even more apparent, because I think that's where the bell came from. I think the bell was developed through an attempt to engineer this mysterious Vimana technology that is talked about in the ancient texts.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of discussions on this. You've seen, like, Joe Rogan, Aaron Rodgers talk about hieroglyphs that look like, helicopters and all that stuff. And of course, Brian Callen dismisses it. All these archaeologists, they would have talked about that already. You're like, not if that's literally what he came on my show and said. And I go, not if there's an official narrative that the power structure of archaeology has made their bones on.
They're the most brainwashed of all the mainstream archaeologists.
Yeah, and if you change that data point, they're obsolete. So if you're in charge, you're like, nope, this is the story because I'm dominating right now. And if you change the timelines, I have old data and I'm no longer useful.
Yeah, and careers are threatened.
Yep.
Is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And think about it this way. You're working, you're a professor, you're working, associated with a university, you have your tenure, you have a family, and your wife and kids are very happy in that nice house and those nice cars.
Yep.
And you're just going to upset their apple cart if you buck, the system and the tradition and the narrative, the official narrative. And not too many people are to do that. And careers are threatened, over this stuff for the status quo. So, and sometimes that is to protect technology, which governments do want to keep secret, or private corporations. They're part of covering that up. And when you're talking about the secret societies, we're talking about the 1850s. A lot of these guys that were studying thermodynamics, the industrialists and such, they also were interested in alchemy and the history of all this stuff. So these are the guys who, if they stumble upon something, they keep it between themselves and they don't share it publicly, but they will try to develop it. And I think that's what these guys in the Sonora Aero Club were doing. I think that's what McCorn Rankin was aware of. Was this old stuff. So,
we talk about, and I'll shut up here, but we talk a lot about how, or I do, and people think I'm crazy, but my real belief is this next gen technology that is being rolled out everywhere is hardwired mysticism. Like they've been working on this. I mean, if I went to you guys before today's show and go, yeah, they were working on basically flying machines like before the Civil War, most of us would be like, no freaking way, or anything like that. No way. But like, yeah, they have been, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. And when you've been putting that much money and that much time in, you get to a point where you're like, oh, we've gotten it so we can make this thing you carry around with you, read your thoughts, and we can manipulate the weather, and we can use anything in your house to spy on you and stuff like it's all Doctor Strange level stuff, time manipulation and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you talk about the thread of how this stuff gets passed, you have an era. Take the Renaissance. You have a group of guys, couple of secret societies. They develop things to the extent they can during their lifetime.
Yes.
And then eventually, the youngest one of them is going to die. And what they've done is they've documented this somewhere, and they leave it in the trust of someone, so that next era, that next age, that next however, whatever generation down the line of secret guys, one of the perks of being selected for these societies is you get to see this stuff. But it's all, it's in the books, and only to the extent that they were able to take it. Okay. So then the next generation, the next era, it's like, okay, let's take this and take it to the next step. And then on down through history, document it. When you die off, it's there for somebody. And I think by the time we got to McCorn Rankin and the Sonora Aero Club, these guys were, a part of these secret societies, and they saw what was done before them. And it's like, okay, it's time for us to experiment. And they move the ball down the field.
Yeah. Bloodlines and secret societies are on no timeline. They will take as much time as possible, including many, 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 many different generations over and over. Whatever it takes, the plan will take as long as the plan takes. It does not matter. And that's why when you get into timelines, when talking conspiracy, and you start giving dates, you really start to set yourself up for some problems. When you're like, I think this is going to happen on this day, and it doesn't, you go, oh, you're an idiot. Well, because there is no set timeline. They would love to happen. They'd love for it to happen when it's supposed to happen, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Right. Exactly. It's going to happen when it happens, when certain things, people have the ability to achieve those certain things. So, you come to the end of the Sonora Aero Club, and I think part of that went on. I think that there's reason to suggest, when you get into the weeds of it and in the stuff I and several others before me have written, I think this Peter Menace guy, who was the lead of the Sonora Aero Club, I think somewhere along the way, this gentleman named Solomon Andrews became privy to how far the Sonora Aero Club and others that we don't know about had carried this special research, how far they had carried it. And he wanted to carry it to the next step. So during the early years, I think the middle years of the Civil War, this was in newspapers in the 1860s. He contacted Abraham Lincoln and told him he has a controlled flight machine, that he called the Aeron, Aeron. See, there's another clue. I know that, linguistically, that's the prefix for flight or flying machine, that kind of thing. But it is interesting that the Sonora Aero Club called their machines Aeros, and then Andrews calls his the Aeron. So Abraham Lincoln was intrigued with this. And he told his war secretary, Edwin Stanton, meet with this guy. He's going to demonstrate this flying technology. Okay. And he did. He goes to Washington, D.C. He demonstrates his flying machine to members of Abraham Lincoln's War Department and Washington, D.C. journalists. And they report on it, and they report watching this thing fly. Now, history tells us that Edwin Stanton kind of only half politely said, we're in the middle of the war. You know, we got things to focus on. We don't see any use for this. Thank you, but no thank you. Now, think about that.
Yeah.
They're already using balloons for reconnaissance and stuff. You're telling me that this guy comes to them with this controlled flying machine and Edwin Stanton's just going to blow it off? Well, we know that this wasn't developed during the war because we would have heard reports about it. Because if the Union had these controlled flying machines, the story of the Civil War in history would have been different. Okay. But so clearly to me, they didn't do anything with it during the war, but I suspect they did something after the war that they committed with industrialists in what I suspect was America's first black project done by the government in the deepest secrecy that they could put a lid on. The War Department, post-war War Department, and these industrialists got together to further develop this controlled flying technology, not balloons, not airplanes. Okay. But we're talking, yes, we call it anti-gravity for lack of a better term. What's interesting is when you look at certain threads tying it to the 1890s airship mystery, this post-Civil War secret project starts to get legs. It starts to make sense, because if you start with what the Sonora Aero Club had developed, you take that with Solomon Andrews' machine, okay? And then you look at the description 30 years after the Civil War, 25, 30 years after the end of the Civil War, okay, and you see what the witnesses were describing, you know, what they were seeing with these airships. For all the world, it looks like the same technology, just 25 years down the road from the end of the Civil War. Okay.
What years were the Civil War, by the way? I know it's going to sound stupid.
What's that?
What
60 to 61.
1860s, yeah, 1861 to 1865.
Really 61, but 60 is when is when it really started to kick off.
Okay, all right. That puts it like what, almost 80 years before World War II.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And so you have the 1890s airship mystery now. Now, here's an interesting thing that reaches back as another thread to the Civil War era. When the 1890s airships, okay, that were being seen all over the western United States, in one particular case,
and that's in the 1800s they were seeing all these flights?
Or the 1890s.
Okay.
It started, the famous airship mystery started in 1896 and went into 1897 and actually 1898. So you have this airship land, and two gentlemen who were on the airship get off the airship, and they're talking to the witnesses. And they identify themselves as Colonel Samuel Tillman and Amos Dolbear. Now, you can look them up. These were historical figures. Amos Dolbear was an electrician and a scientist and an engineer. And Colonel Samuel Tillman at one time during World War I was made commandant of West Point, okay, because the commander had to, be involved with the war. Colonel Samuel Tillman was a U.S. Army officer who was a scientist officer. He was mostly a science officer. He was a cartographer, but he was also a chemist, okay, and was involved with engineering and such. And when you look at the description of how, people witness how these airships were working, okay, it fits right in with Colonel Tillman's expertise as a career Army officer. When you consider that he was also a cartographer, okay, and aerial views of cities, the map, okay, aerial view maps which were popularized by a guy named O.H. Bailey. And they were using balloons to do these. But, after the Civil War era, these maps got a little more sophisticated. Isn't it interesting that Colonel Samuel Tillman, who is witnessed to have been on board one of these airships in the 1890s, was also a cartographer, and the fact that he was a chemist, okay, when you go back to the Sonora Aero Club, chemistry was a big part of what they were doing to make these flying machines. So there's the connectors. If chemistry, right, was a part of developing this mystery airship technology, and it continued to be so, you would naturally have a guy like Samuel Tillman, okay, that was his expertise, and here he is connected to the airship mystery.
And
now,
chemistry could easily be alchemy, right?
Well, chemistry came from alchemy historically, yeah. So absolutely. Now, what's interesting, you say, well, Samuel Tillman, how famous was he? Well, he wasn't like rock star famous. Of all the people that the witnesses could have claimed, if they were making it up, got off an airship, why would they choose this Army officer, this guy Samuel Tillman? Yeah. But when you look at Tillman's background, you see that a guy like him would very much have likely been involved with a secret U.S. government War Department / Army project on airships. So, on the one hand, you say, oh, some people, how skeptics are. They don't want to acknowledge anything. Oh, that's thin, that's thin, that's thin. But it's not really that thin. I'm sure you're familiar with Daniel List, known as Dark Journalist.
Yes, we love him.
He has done some fantastic further research on Samuel Tillman, and has dug up a lot more evidence to back up what I'm saying about Tillman having likely been involved with this, spooky secret technology development.
So crazy.
On the 1890s airships, the witnesses described a lot of spinning, rotating devices that also worked with vibration and resonance. In fact, one of the witnesses saw, I think in one case, this was Dole, but the mysterious Wilsons, again, which is another complete discussion, actually kind of tap a device that's similar to a tuning fork, and it activated the buoyancy of the airship before it flew off.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And this, my friends, is where the bell comes into the story. I was pouring through Del Shaw's books. Now, I mentioned Del Shaw did these interesting journals and picture books, hundreds, some say, I think there's might be thousands of these schematics and drawings of these flying machines that he claimed both were built and flew or were being designed in the 1850s.
Hey guys, real quick, listen, if you're a working man and you work hard for your money, you better have the right clothes for the right job. And there's no better place that has made the best clothes for the working man than our good friends at True Work. Let me tell you about True Work. Most gear gets built to look like it works. True Work is different. It's built for real conditions, hot rooftops, quick turns, jobs that don't ease up, with sweating, wicking fabric, unrestricted movement, and strength that holds up firm under pressure. True Work helps you keep pace when it matters. We're not here to mimic hard work. We're here to support it. Every seam is intentional. Every feature is tested, because in this field, you don't get respect by looking the part. You earn it by doing the right things again and again and again, okay? That's the bar. True Work was built to meet it. The gear that works harder, moves better, and proves itself every single time. All right. And I got my True Work on right here, looking good, hides my chi-chis. Okay. I look good. I feel good. I'm ready to go out and take on the world. Okay. I love it. It's great, dude. You know, every True Work product is engineered for maximum comfort, protection, and efficiency with minimum bulk or extra weight. Okay. Upgrade to True Work for major change in the way you work. True Work helps you be the best when it matters, okay? I think you should check this out. I think I use this and I think you should too. So here's what we got. Check out the full lineup and get 15% off your first order at truework.com/tinfoil. That's 15% off at truewerk.com/tinfoil. We thank them for sponsoring this show.
Now get this. Because spinning, rotating mechanisms were involved with the 1890s airship mystery craft, I thought, well, let's look deeper at the Delschau Sonora Aero Club stuff in the 1850s. And I was going through his artwork, okay, and I found it. I sent you an image of it, the image of a rudimentary prototype bell. And Charles Delschau drew that in his books sometime prior to his death in 1923, which was at least a decade before we're told the Nazi bell was even starting to take form.
Our illegal intern right now is looking for.
I think maybe, did you send it to Mark, our booker? Because he did not forward it along if you did.
We're blaming Mark for this one.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark.
I'll text him and see if he can send it.
But that drawing Delschau did prior to 1923. And he said, get this, he said this was one of the most important operative devices of the 1850s flying machines. It is literally shaped like a bell. It's on an axis and rotates, spins, just like the Glocke. Okay, so it is consider it a rudimentary prototype bell done in the 1850s. By the time we get to Nazi Germany, what they're doing is they're doing it's two cylinders, one embedded in the other. They added the counter rotation part, and then they souped it up with tons of electricity. Okay, but what you're seeing in the Delschau drawing, I'm convinced, and I've convinced a few others, including Joseph Farrell and some others, that these Germans in California already knew about the basic concepts of this Die Glocke idea, okay? And they successfully applied it to their flying machines. So it wasn't the bell. There's all this fun hoo-ha that, they got that from a crash flying saucer, the Vril saucers. Them Germans got a crash flying saucer in the 1920s, and that's where they got. No, I know
such a lie then, right? I mean, they lie so much.
I resent that your dumb guy had a southern accent, by the way.
Well, I know, but see, my mom's from Alabama, my dad's from West Virginia, so I come from folks like that. So that kind of gives me license.
Wow,
that's in my blood.
Mark would have sent you that too. Actually, I think he just.
But I do apologize to my
please
hillbilly
don't.
and southern cousin.
We're not that sensitive here on the show.
Hell, man.
But a lot of people, they get mad at me when I point out that the whole Haunebu saucer thing is nonsense. It did not happen. It's not true. It is the product of a post-war legend and myth of post-war neo-Nazis and Nazi survival, and they're making up stuff. Look up a guy named Ernst Zundel, because that's where it started after the war in an Italian newspaper.
Interesting. So you're saying the Nazi bell story isn't real?
No. The Nazi bell story, I think, is real. The Haunebu saucer story is not true, is not real. The Nazis, in my opinion, got the bell, the idea for the bell, what they knew about the bell. They got it from this line of German research, which included the Germans in California. It included the mysterious group called NYMZA. Remember, I mentioned them. Okay. And think about it. There's all these Germans.
Right. So, but if we had already created it, why is it such a big deal that the Nazis created it as well? Is it that they did advanced versions of it?
Yes, that in my opinion, it's because they did such an advanced version of it. Because again, remember, when you look at what Delschau drew, it is very much a rudimentary proof of concept. Okay, and Delschau's flying machines that he said the Sonora Aero Club did, they were very. I do a chart. I call it the Bosley chart. because I made it up.
I love that.
You know, I created
Congratulations.
yeah. And I show for the 20th century folks to see the progression that I'm talking about. I show an 1850s flying contraption called the Aero was kind of like the Model T, okay, the original Model T. Okay, then the 1890s airships are kind of like what a 1958 Buick was to a Model T, right? Advanced, right? But not the ultimate. And then we go to the modern day. I used the sport model flying saucer, you know, from the Area 51 lore, and that's the equivalent of what, you know, like a 1980s Porsche was to a 1958 Buick, which then both of them to a. So you see, so
no, I get it. I get it. So it was the advanced version of that. It's streamlined.
Yeah. So
moves quicker.
When you look at it that way, the progression, and not just with the Bell stuff, with turbine and the fuel and everything. When you see that there's that kind of progression, then it's easier to see that okay, there's a German thread. There was German personnel in this historical development of this, starting in, you know, we can trace it back to the 1850s, and you know, by the time you get to Nazi Germany, these guys were also, you know, the chemists and the scientists and the engineers, they were very much into esoteric stuff. Many of them were indeed in, you know, secret societies, just the guys in the Thule Gesellschaft, the Thule Society, they were into this esoteric ancient lore. I mean, think about it. If I and others are right that the Bell, you know, is some type of modern product of toying with ancient Vedic texts, does it surprise you then why the Nazi scientists were going all over India and into Tibet? They were fascinated with this lore.
No, this totally all lines up to me. Even again, going back to the New Jersey drones, and like what people were talking about were like wheels that were turning, and almost a way to make it look like biblical angels. And then all the videos we see of where people are flying, all of a sudden a ball just flies by them. And of course they want to label it alien technology, which
it's easy.
It's easy. And it also sets this precedence that there's something out there smarter than us, and we're not going to be able to stop them. So we might as well just submit to them. And you know, and that's the whole thing about Project Bluebeam, right? That they wanted, that they're, hey, something bigger is coming down, fake alien invasion, and it's going to come, and we're going to be like, we cannot beat you. We are not worthy. And in reality, it's probably the military.
Well, but the irony is, I agree with everything you were just saying. The irony is I think there are, you know, intelligent civilizations out in space with technology way beyond ours who could come here and just, you know, with a snap of their fingers conquer us. That's the irony. It is out there, but I also think, you know, those in the government, military, intel community, or whatever, who know the truth about that, they're using that, right? You know, the threat is real. It's like, okay, we know that terrorist groups are real. We know that terrorists are real. They commit acts, but that doesn't mean that terrorist threat wasn't used against us, right?
Yeah.
Starting years ago to keep us afraid and worried and to control us. So while terrorism is real, not every threat is going to be true. It's the same thing with the extraterrestrials. Well, of course, extraterrestrials are out there. I think it's illogical to think otherwise. And there's going to be some that can conquer us, and there's going to be some that don't like us, and they are going to be a threat. But at present, I think the idea of the threat is being used.
Manipulated. Here's the thing that connects with what you're saying, in my humble opinion. So you remember when we had the red balloon that was going around, and the government and the military is like, we don't know what's happening. We can't stop it. And I go,
Yeah.
What is the point of having a defense if you can't stop a red balloon?
Right.
Is it a weather balloon? Is it a Chinese spy balloon? But they're just all losing. Like they're in the corners screaming and crying that this balloon is. We don't know what to do with that. And I'm like, you're a defense. Do something with it. If you're trying to convince us it's from China, which I don't believe. Do something about it, but you didn't do anything about it. But then 2 weeks later, they're like, yeah, we shot down an alien craft in Canada. I'm like, oh, so let me get this right. You can't do anything with a balloon, but you've just shot down this alien craft.
You're intercepted a multi-dimensional craft.
Yeah, you know, this thing that came from, let's just say we believe in that story, billions of miles away, and you were just like, pew, 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 and it crashes, and it's almost to a point of a demoralization, like they don't want you to know if you're coming or going, what we can do, what we can't do, and it just like, maybe it sounds to me like U.S. military or even Canadian military, most likely U.S. military, crashed, and now they got to come up with a story about that.
Why? Because they couldn't control it, or because it just crashed.
It just, for whatever reason, it crashed, and now
they don't want you looking at what's really going on.
Yeah.
Pardon?
What was that?
He said because they don't want you looking at what's really going on.
Yeah, that's what I agree. They don't want you to really know what's going on. And again,
look in front of you, because if you see a UFO in front of you, a friend of mine, Greg Bishop, said this years ago. You see a UFO in front of you, turn around and look behind you to see what it is they're distracting you from.
Yeah, which is so true. Which is everything to me is a magic trick. That they're trying to manipulate energy and manipulate your emotions, and these energy vampires feed off that stuff. And that's exactly what this all is. Because if we know we had flying technology before the Civil War, what do you think they have today? And that's not even what we're allowed to see. What they have as somewhere in that mountain near Area 51 or whatever underground tunnel, that base that they have, some dumb base that they have out there that has just even crazier stuff.
Yeah, and that honestly is where I hit kind of the problem, even with my own hypothesis, was I could trace this and present a hypothetical line from 1849 up to the World War II era. But the question was, okay, if they were doing these things, where were they during World War II? Well, you could argue they were still too rudimentary to be overly effective. That's where the Foo Fighters come from. That's where other stuff comes from. But where have they been since? And, admittedly, okay, that's a very good question. But then you look at what I was saying earlier about the anti-gravity research, and then suddenly a lid going down on it. Well, maybe it took until 1958 for whatever started in 1849 to really develop effectively. That's the only answer I can come up with, because there's this weird story out there that, take it however you want to, but there's weird story that in 1903, this private group came to Nikola Tesla and asked him, they said they'd pay for it and everything, but they asked him to design an airship that they could fly to Mars. That's the story. Now, I address this in one of my books. I say, okay, if they were going to try this, is there any technology that they could have even fooled themselves to think they would have survived off the planet in space, right? Because my thought is, okay, you get on this airship, and the minute you get too high and you get out in space, you all die, and because there's
every reason, right? There's no oxygen, food, water, radiation.
But there's the problem of Oliver Heaviside. Oliver Heaviside wasn't even a professional scientist, and he came up with gravito-electromagnetics, GEM, GEM. With GEM. Now, he came up with this in the 1890s. And according to his idea, you could, with the GEM, gravito-electromagnetics, you could create and generate a protective bubble around an object, which within you could have a survivable environment, basically life support. Now, this is a guy who's thinking of this in the 1890s, the airship era. And then in 1903, you have this legend coming from the murky shadows that some guys asked Tesla to design this machine this airship that they would build and fly off planet. So that's in the for what it category, because we never hear anything about that again, and I don't think, if it's out there floating, maybe the Black Knight, which has been proven to be a NASA
oh really?
Yeah, now the object in the photo that people were calling the Black Knight, that's been proven to be a shroud, an equipment shroud that fell off something in the shuttle and now is floating in space. But that shroud does not explain all the lore that is behind this mysterious thing that's been circling the Earth, which they claimed was ancient. So there's another thing they do. See, there's something that it pre-exists the other thing that is explained away. Mm-hmm. So the lore of this Black Knight mystery satellite thing precedes the pictures of this shroud thing. So when they're able to explain away the shroud, which they did sufficiently, that pointy nose image thing, that is an equipment shroud, a NASA equipment shroud, it's been sufficiently explained away. What they do is they say, well, then that explains away the whole Black Knight thing. Not so fast, because parts of the Black Knight story that are not explained away by that shroud. And I don't know, maybe maybe they got up there and, like I said,
they're just still there. Yeah,
that's and great. They're still there, in that thing. I don't know, but it's interesting to me that when you start pulling these threads of the Bell and the airship technology, you begin to find more and more legitimate possible evidence that the Bell was real, and it was developed from a very human line of technological development. We didn't need a crashed flying saucer to do these things. I think they used the saucer crash stories, as long as they could get away with them, to cover for these kinds of developments, because there's people that still buy them. There's people that still lock, stock, and barrel are convinced that, and here comes another thing that people hate when I say, there's people that are just thoroughly convinced, by gosh, you're not going to tell them otherwise, that Roswell was not an ET craft that crashed, in spite of any strong arguments you could make that that's not true.
I
wrote that in a book too.
Yeah, well, there's the old saying, it's easier to lie to somebody than to convince them that they've been lied to.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to believe they have a giant, great bullshit meter and that they can sense BS from a mile away. And when they buy into something, they just want to go on with their life. They're like, this is what I think, I'm just going to move on and I don't care, regardless of the consequences and what that actually means. And you're seeing it right now. There's a lot of smoke screens and everything going on with this super advanced technology that these nerds want to roll out that seem like they're just going to completely destroy our right to privacy and our freedoms and all that stuff. And I don't know why they do it. Their language is very weird to me. They gleefully talk about, keeping people on their best behavior. We want people afraid at night. These are weird descriptions of technology you're gleefully rolling out.
Right.
What do you think Roswell was? What do you think Roswell was?
What do you think it actually was?
You think it was?
If you think it was it was just a crash that went down and the government had to make up a actual smoke screen for it. Oh, these were aliens, not us using technology. Is that what you're thinking?
You're talking about Roswell. I didn't hear that.
Yes. Sorry.
What do I
English
think Roswell
is a second
was?
language.
I think it was the United States' first attempt at manned space flight. You had all the right engineers, rocket scientists and stuff in the same place at the same time. They had as much money as they wanted. Okay. Here's the key to the whole man in space mystery and these secrets. And that's what's called aerospace medicine. Okay, you go, oh, gee, that's boring. That's right. A bunch of doctors. Why is that important? Because aerospace medicine is how we keep humans alive in space. That's how we learn to do life support systems. Okay, and these guys date back to the early 20th century. Okay, and their whole goal was to put human beings in outer space. That's what led them into their specialty. And our aerospace medicine scientists and their aerospace, the Germans, aerospace medicine scientists, they all knew each other and respected each other and knew that theirs was the most advanced work on this. So Operation Paperclip, okay, was not started because of the bomb. Operation Paperclip of German aerospace medicine scientists who went to American aerospace medicine scientists. Okay, that's who Colonel Harry Armstrong was an aerospace medicine doctor, okay, and said, hey, a bunch of us will come over and work for the United States. Just bring us over. And that's how Operation Paperclip was born. That's history. And so Operation Paperclip was started to get Germany's aerospace medicine specialists and their rocket engineers. And not, for the V2s and missiles. These guys were also obsessed with putting human beings in space. So you have all these guys in New Mexico at the same time. They all share the dream with the American counterparts of putting human beings in space. The war is over. They have endless money. They have carte blanche to pursue their respective technologies. Now think about it. The rocket guys, their job is to work what is eventually towards missiles and high-flying aircraft to deliver bombs to those pesky Russians, those Soviets, because we're in the Cold War now, okay? And the aerospace medicine guys, their job is to keep those B-29 and high-altitude bomber crews alive on their missions against the pesky Soviets, okay? But their dream, lifelong dream, is to put humans in space. So what do you think they're going to do? I think they sold the higher ups on, let us try this. Okay. When you look at the original drawings of the witness drawings, you go back and you look at the original witness drawings of the Roswell craft, it looks suspiciously like the middle section of the Horton Flying Wing that was built during World War II. And interestingly enough, later on, that in 1947, later on that same year, we had the YB-49, which was our giant flying wing. And it looks suspiciously like very similar technology. So I argue, and I go into this in I have a book titled Shimmering Light, in which I go into this in a whole chapter. I really do think that what they did was the rocket and aerospace engineers, Germans and ours, got together. They designed the craft. Our aerospace medicine guys designed the life support system that would be used. And they did this thing. And they had a successful flight, except upon return, there, of course, was some type of failure, maybe catastrophic failure in the sky or whatever, and this thing crashed. But because it was the early paranoid years of the Cold War, we could not let it get out. We were trying to keep it from the Russians that we were doing this. So it was easier to go ahead and say, oh yeah, a flying saucer, a spaceship from another world crashed. And because people love this idea and want to believe this so much, they refuse to believe anything else. Now, this was done back in the 40s, but remember, the Roswell incident did not really gain traction or even awareness of the public until 1980, when the book of that title came out. And then people were used to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a couple of decades of spacemen coming to Earth movies, and then E.T. in 1982. So, this was already, in the public zeitgeist that, aliens, it's got to be aliens. So what they're on this was just perpetuate what was a cover story. But if you look at the history of this aerospace medicine and the rocket scientists and all the things I put together in my hypothesis, and I'll be the first to tell you I could be wrong, but this is my assessment based on years of looking at this and doing a deep dive on this. This is my assessment. I think it was our first attempt at manned spaceflight.
I feel bad for the UFO people because all their heat has kind of been jacked by this World War III that we all think we're getting into. So that nobody's talking about it, but there's a lot of alien disclosure going on. What are your thoughts on that? Because, just like the conspiracy community, that everyone's calling everybody, a fraud, agent provocateurs, agents of chaos. What is your thoughts on so much of this disclosure stuff going on?
I don't buy it. You mean in front of Congress?
All that stuff. Like
Grush, Elizondo, and all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perception management operation. It has been since 2017. I know a lot about that world, and I know how it works. And from the get-go, as soon as we were introduced to Lou Elizondo, I was at the time, one of the few voices saying, this is a perception management op. That's what this guy's doing. He's being a good soldier because he's doing, what he's ordered to do. And that's been my opinion of that since, and I haven't seen anything to convince me otherwise. And actually more and more people are coming to see that conclusion. What they're trying to do is cover some pretty amazing technology, like the Tic Tac. Come on, that's U.S. Defense aerospace, really advanced technology. That's not anything extraterrestrial. The alleged performance of it was greatly exaggerated. Where they saw this thing is in a known area off the coast of California where this kind of stuff is tested. It's a lot of it's a restricted area. This kind of stuff is tested, and people were under an impression this was to happen right off the coast of San Diego, downtown San Diego. No, it was miles out to sea. And people say, well, why would they test that in front of pilots who didn't know what it was? To get their reaction.
Yep.
You want a real world reaction from a pilot. Well, there you go.
What about the theory about interdimensional?
Oh, I love that. I think there's something to this interdimensional.
Yeah,
stuff. Remember, folks, I do think there are extraterrestrials, advanced civilizations. I think they've been coming to this planet and they continue to do so. It's like the example I gave you about the terrorists. There is terrorism, but they use the threat of terrorism to manipulate us. Same thing with the ETs. But yeah, interdimensional, I absolutely think there's something to that.
I have two more questions for you. What are your thoughts on that? So much of this involves the ocean and what's in the ocean, and this Tic Tac thing keeps coming in and out of the ocean, and like we've explored air quotes space more than we have our own oceans. And then we have a good friend of ours who comes on the show, Eddie Bravo, and he's always saying that like they create films to create narratives. And like all the films about like, oh, if you go in the forest, you're gonna get eaten by animals, you're gonna get hacked up by a axe murderer. Don't go to the forest. And then they've done that a lot with the ocean, like Jaws and all these giant like eat you up animals.
The Titan submersible, imploding,
all that stuff, like the Titanic, all that stuff is like the ocean. It's you're gonna die in the ocean. Don't go to the ocean. What are your thoughts on like what's going on in our oceans?
Well, I don't buy for a fact that we haven't explored our oceans. I mean, I think they're just telling us that the ONR, the Office of Naval Research, is behind a lot more of this stuff than people realize. I think we've been all over the oceans, but they tell us, they tell us that, oh my gosh, we haven't even begun to look at the seas, and that doesn't make sense when you look at it. And as far as the threats down there, I think these are all very real threats, and of course, what they do is they play that up, right? They play it up. They focus when bad things happen. People get attacked by sharks, or I think the Ocean Gate thing, the Titan, that happened. That was a tragedy. This narcissistic jerk took four other people to a horrible death.
Yeah.
And that guy's an a-hole, and that's very that's just, wow, tragedy.
Billionaires are bored. So they're like, hey, let's try to do this. We're probably going to die, but let's try it. And then something
he
happens.
should have gone down there by himself, just him and a couple other crazy guys that work.
Why would
with
you
him.
bring your kid with you?
Yeah. Well, he sold tickets, and I get it. It was to fund his errant project, but
and he got told many times that it was unsafe and just completely ignored.
That was wrong. But I think we have explored, and I think it's a good place to hide things, and that goes for off-planet sources too. If you're an extraterrestrial, find a little island in the middle of nowhere. Go, if you have the technology, just go under the water.
I think that's a big reason why when they really talk who's the most powerful part of the military is the Navy. The Navy is the most powerful.
I think the Air Force has pulled up. I think the Air Force pulled up alongside them a long time ago and might have even surpassed them by now. Little things. Look at little things. For instance, Space Force. All right. Each military branch has their own investigative agency. Okay. But the Air Force OSI, Office of Special Investigations, is the official investigative agency for the Space Force. Now, that's not just looking for, Space Force cadets who are stealing, money or equipment or something. A lot of the work they do is intelligence collections, counterintelligence collections, and that would include what's found in space. So if a Space Force unit goes to the moon or goes to Mars down the road or is out there in space, you have an Air Force agent who's going to be the guy who's, going to be collecting the most important intelligence and the most secret stuff. It's interesting. They don't have their own. So are they truly independent that much from the Air Force or not? But the Air Force is a very conservative branch. You see, there's not a lot of movies made about the Air Force, TV shows about the Air Force, because they won't cooperate with that. Did you know Top Gun originally was supposed to be about the Air Force flight training? And the Air Force said, nah, we don't want to cooperate with movies. So they decided to make it about the Navy Top Gun class.
Huh.
Interesting.
In the 90s, James Cameron wanted to do a U.S. Air Force TV series. He even wined and dined Sheila Widnall, the Secretary of the Air Force, on a yacht in Marina del Rey. And she still, the Air Force still said, nope, we don't want any part of that, because they're very protective, very secretive. And with the Tic Tac incident, we find that crew members said that, it was on a Navy vessel. It involved Navy pilots, Navy, but it was U.S. Air Force intelligence officers who came on board and retrieved the hard drives that had recorded the data of the Tic Tac incident. U.S. Air Force, not ONI, not ONR, Office of Naval Intelligence. Nope. Not Office of Naval Research. Nope. It was the U.S. Air Force who got that data. So I think the Air Force has probably surpassed the Navy, but don't shortchange the Navy, because they are still up there with the forefront of this exotic, spooky technology. They've been around since the 1800s, the Office of Naval Research and the ONI.
Yeah, well, the plan is like, 80% water? That's an important thing to regulate. Johnny, do you remember your question?
I'm taking it back to the 1800s for a second and
Sure.
and later. So the commercial, what would you say, airship as we know it, like the Zeppelins, the Hindenburg. What was that on a tangential, like a parallel development chart? Did they originate with the same philosophy toward flight, and then it kind of diverged toward like a more commercial, mainstream, less technologically advanced?
It was a simpler technology, and simple is what? It's practical, right? It's yes. Economical to produce and to administer and operate. So just like the airplane's a very practical flying machine. Look, right? And so at the time, the airships, the Zeppelins and stuff, those traditional airships, blimps and stuff, it was very practical. So it kind of was an offshoot. Joseph Farrell has done some interesting research on the Civil War and finance, and he's uncovered an interesting thread in there. He shows an interesting thread that he got from my research. That's what led him, on this particular thread. You had the Count von Zeppelin, who was part of the development of the Zeppelin. It's named after him. He was in the United States during the Civil War, associated with the Civil War unit. So remember what I said about this post-war airship project. And here you had Count von Zeppelin, who was a young man, is over here in the United States during this German thread around this mysterious flight stuff. So how much of the airship mystery technology did Zeppelin himself learn about or hear about? We can only guess, but interesting that he goes off and, and from that, later is developed the Zeppelin, the ultimate expression of it being the Hindenburg.
Right. There's a thought that I'm not sure you would call it a conspiracy, but there was an effort to derail the development of airships and a view, I think, pretty well supported view that they were a superior model for air transport in many ways to what became modern air aviation. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look what the automobile industry did to local rail travel in California. I mean, but, you can, all joking aside, the movie Roger Rabbit, that's history. In the kids movie Roger Rabbit, when you see, that's based on history. And the automobile industry, and I think the oil industry too, were involved in killing the light rail and the local railroads, because they saw Southern California as a model of the automobile culture, and of course they won out.
Yeah, I also find it very interesting that LA's like, everyone in LA's like, we need a mass transit system like New York, and they're like, earthquakes won't be good, blah blah blah, and but we're like, we already have those tunnels down there. I think they've co-opted those tunnels and turn them into something much different, and that's why they don't want to use them.
Well, did the ones in San Francisco ever work out good? The trolleys?
Yeah, well, dude. So what they basically did to kind of add on to what he just talked about was like, at one time LA had a bustling mass transit system, and then the car industry went in, took it all out, and guess where it is right now? Mexico City. They have our entire because again, they want us to all be on cars.
Gas.
And we also have a subway system that goes all over the town. Yeah. But they will not use it.
You can see it downtown, remnants of that, the Angels flight thing, that thing that can take you up the hill and downtown LA.
So it's either that there's something else going on down there, which we always hear about, lizard people and this kind of homeless civilization down there.
Mole people.
They talk a lot about mole people down there, which is very interesting. Or it's that, because they can't make any money off an old system. Yeah. Right? They don't want to rebuild.
Can't launder any money building, if you're just using the old system.
I think you could make way more money if you're like, we're going to tell them it's a new system. We're just going to use the old system. And we're going to keep all the money ourselves because we're ran by scumbags in this state that, dude, again, look at the fire relief money gone.
Yeah.
Look at all the money for homelessness gone. Just robbing bearers, just not even caring, just jacking stuff, and nobody says anything. Because the people who are meant to regulate and enforce law are the ones stealing all the money.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm not going to keep you much longer, but my next question is, you've mentioned this a couple times. Mars. We seem to be consumed with Mars, getting to Mars, that something's going to happen, on this planet. We've had people come on talk about pole shifts. There's also people think like either global warming, don't believe that. Climate change, don't believe that. Right. Nuclear annihilation. I know it's going to sound crazy. Not into that. But there is this, people are consumed. Elon Musk constantly talking about Mars. You brought up earlier people approaching Tesla about going to Mars. Yeah. What are your thoughts? And have you done any research that maybe we've already been to Mars, if that's possible?
Yeah, I've been saying for a long time, for years, that I think we at least tried it. You know, I've said in the past, and I have no trouble with proposing it. You know, again, I wouldn't be surprised if we've put boots on Mars. You know, at least once. I am confident. I think we've tried it. Regardless of that, I'm in that camp that thinks, oh yeah, I think there are relics. I think there was a civilization on Mars long time ago, was destroyed. And I think the game that NASA plays, they show us stuff on the Mars feed, right? And all these people are saying, wow, look at that. That looks like some type of device, or there's no way that's natural. And I think they're right. But NASA not saying anything, our government not confirming it, it's their way of down the road when they do reveal this, they can say, well, we let you see it all this time. We weren't hiding it. There it was in the pictures on the camera, you know, but their silence is neither confirming nor denying. But I think it's a slow disclosure. The real disclosure. Well, first of all, I think real disclosure is going to come from the aliens themselves. When they're tired of all our secrecy, they're just going to say, we don't care what your governments say. Boom, they'll be in the skies. There they are. But as far as what our government is releasing, I think Mars is being used. And I think this, I don't know for sure, but I think Mars is being used as the slow drip disclosure. That first they want to reveal to us, a long time ago on Mars, yes, there was an intelligent civilization. Once people, you know, once they see how people react to that, then they'll tell us more, and then they'll eventually get around to saying what they know about who's coming and going presently, who's really out there, you know, in the present. But I think Mars is being used to do the slow, because I think there's much more going on with Mars in that regard than we've been told.
Largely benevolent when you talk about them revealing themselves, or what's your hunch there?
Hey, I'm in the school of thought that I think it's childish and ridiculous with these people that think that all the aliens are peaceful. I mean, who is it? I think Stephen Greer claims, they're all peaceful. Baloney. No, I don't even want to go there. About
such a risk to say.
There's so many problems with him. But here's the thing: to assume that all civilizations, just because they have advanced space travel technology, are magically peaceful, that's nonsense. Most of our advanced technology is developed for war. Yeah. And
no, you're totally right.
Yeah, and I'm not a oh shoot, what's the word? It's escaping me. When you're anti-humanity. What
transhumanism?
Yeah, I don't think we're the worst, dumbest things in the universe. That is ridiculous. We're pretty amazing. We have our faults and our flaws. We have our idiots. All of us have our idiotic moments. We're not perfect, but you know what? We're not that dumb. We're not that unworthy. That is ridiculous. And I think the people out in space are pretty much a lot like us in that regard. And you know what? We are going to encounter a civilization hell-bent on conquest. And we're either going to meet the challenge or we're not. We're going to end up like Mars, whatever happened to them and whoever did it to them. Oh, boy. And that's kind of scary, you know, when you think about it. But that's what I think about that.
Yeah, I mean, like every movie, when we encounter a new species, we try to kill it.
Or they try to kill us, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like no one's like, hey, it's Care Bears. Let's hang out and have fun.
That's so true, yeah.
Right? It's always try to kill it first, then figure it out.
Yeah, you know, and not that there aren't people that really think that way, not that things like that haven't gone on, but again, you know, that's the movies, and people have agendas with movies, you know.
You have a very scientific view of stuff. Does spirituality come into any play into what you're talking about?
Oh, big time. I am by no means, just because I really want no part of churchianity or formal religions, I am by no means an atheist. I think those entities, those gods, small g, exist. I think the interdimensional thing I'm fascinated with. I think the spiritual world is very real. I just don't think that, human organizations that claim to be, tied into that stuff are legit. The priesthood, so no, I'm very much a spiritual minded person. Absolutely. And I think that these things are part of what we're experiencing, are part of when people think they're seeing, oh, it's a UFO, it must be from another planet. No, you might be seeing some other being from another dimension, or one of these God related beings, whatever they are, whoever they are.
Sometimes I think aliens just treat Earth like it's Tijuana. They just come down.
Some of them might.
And just get weird and do weird stuff, and then come home, and then nobody
Maybe that's why they crashed. They're drunk is what it is.
Yeah, I can't believe that chick did that.
I remembered the word misanthropist. I am not a misanthropist. I think that's not at all. I don't bash humankind. That's the sign of a sophomore intellect.
I agree. I think humans are amazing. We just due to going viral, we're highlighting the worst, and everybody thinks that's the norm. Yeah. That's the problem with social media. The worst is constantly being highlighted, and everyone's like, that's how everybody acts. You're like, nah, not really. That's not. No. That's just what your algorithm was wanting to tell you, and it's pretty sad.
The Dunning-Kruger a-holes are showing you.
Yes.
Yeah. Walter, great episode. One more time, tell them where they can find you.
Well, my site is walterbosley.com, and my YouTube channel is the Walter Bosley channel at YouTube.
Well, Walter, we really do appreciate you coming on the show. It was a great discussion. The conversation flew, so we all had a lot of fun, and we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, and let's break down the episode. All right, let's break down the episode. What'd you guys think? Super interesting, huh? I really liked Walter. Well-researched. The people that believe space is fake, not going to enjoy it. But I thought it was great, and it gets into this thing about like the way we look at like past civilizations, like they're all just like wearing togas and like running around with spears. Like they're way more technology, dude. Way more technology than we believe. What are your guys' thoughts?
Like he said, it's been back since the Civil War. I didn't think if there would be a flying object during the Civil War. And there's two guys that came on and just said, it's been around since the Civil War time.
That is crazy that we had that conversation, even though one was very short, the other one's very long, that we discussed Civil War aviation.
We also, think about Da Vinci had those drawings of that ornithopter thing, that they use in Dune.
Yeah.
The flying bug. There's some thoughts of that shit.
Johnny, you talk about reading a lot about the Civil War. Do you think there's a little spots of technology that they miss or they try to take out?
Well, there's some. I don't know if they. I buy what they're saying, but there are even just in the record, there are they mentioned observation balloons. So that was a really new technology, or at least for them it was. And they were, there was this one general that was really fond of going up all the time, and it was like sport for the other side to try to shoot the balloon down. And one time, this guy wanted to go. I can't remember exactly who it was. He insisted on going up in the balloon, but he didn't know shit about how to operate it or anything, and it just started blowing away. And they were just sprinting to try to. They were about to lose the general just into the. Because think about it, dude. You can't. I told you that story about how, or that belief that historians have that, you just had a couple of sets of walkie-talkies, you could have changed the course of the war.
Yeah.
There's no way to get at, other than mountains and natural, places where there's height, to get an overview. No satellites, none of that shit.
Johnny, I think about that all the time when they go, here's a map from the 1500s. I'm like, how did they know?
Well, that was the job of cartographers and people after the fact to go in and document it. That's like a really... if someone says this is a map from the 1500s,
How did they?
Oh, it was terrible, notoriously awful. I mean, we can see maps from that time, and they're terrible. We know now what things look like, and they're awful. I mean, like, early maps of the U.S. are shit, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's
Your map is shit, bro.
like at Gettysburg. There's a general who mapped it out really well for the Union and is given a great credit for establishing their lines and being kind of one of the heroes of that for the Union, because he had just that's a real
Did
talent.
he use stick figures to show the people?
No, he drew maps. That's funny. But yeah, he drew maps. But it was a real talent to be able to see land and understand what it meant for troop movement and
Well, even then, I
defensible
mean, if
positions.
you take some of those like Earth classes, they do like
What now?
different colors for different heights. Earth classes like
geology or something?
Yeah, where they do
Yeah,
like
in
different.
Mexico
geography,
it's called Earth class.
Yeah, Earth classes. But they'll show you like different colors for different heights, and it's like
oh yeah, like topography and
yeah,
and
where
shit.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how did you it's so accurate now.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
But yeah, that story's hilarious about that guy. There's different versions of that story about him getting like stuck in a tree finally, and they had to go up and climb up and rescue him. But
Well,
it's
did you guys
hilarious.
see over the weekend? I don't think it was in India because everything crashes involves India now. But it was, I think it was somewhere in Latin America, that hot air balloon that crashed.
No.
Johnny, see if you can look it up. Hot air.
You won't catch me in a fucking hot air balloon. I can tell
No
you
way.
that,
Thank
bro.
you for censoring that because Johnny's like, I'm going to have to go back and take
No,
that
that's
out.
actually
See, thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. You guys want to do it?
We swore less on the
way
last
less.
two episodes.
Yeah. Wait up, you guys
Mostly
would-
because I didn't want to offend the guests. I'm like, if I dropped a hard
Oh
F
damn,
bomb,
Brazil. 8
the
people
older the
dead.
guest, the more I know you'll behave.
yes, young person, I'm dropping. If it's a chick, I won't say sex jokes. Like the AIDS lady, all she kept talking about was loads.
Oh, and you were struggling. Right? You were like Michael Scott in The Office, where when he can't not say that's what she said. Your ears start to smoke, just like turning red. Yeah, 8 people, at least 8 people.
Can you show the video so she can feel the terror too?
He'll have to pull it up. It's at least 8 people have died in a hot air balloon accident in southern Brazil.
New fear unlocked, as Dylan Wren said. New
guys-
fear
you
unlocked.
guys wouldn't go on a
There's
hot air
no
balloon?
fear from
No
me. 'Cause I'm
way,
never going on a hot air
bro.
balloon, yeah.
No?
No, watch this video.
In Temecula, they have them, and I mean, they just look very peaceful.
Another
It's a
reason
lot.
not to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you said Temecula like it was safe. Sounds like tarantula.
No, wait up. Temecula's pretty safe.
Okay.
Okay.
Look up Temecula.
Well, you're
Johnny.
from
I mean,
Tijuana,
yeah, I was about to
so
say, yeah.
everything's safe
Compared to
where you-
Glendale, yeah.
Glendale's having.
Glendale's pretty safe too.
Okay.
No, they're having fucking gang wars right now.
You guys are scared of everything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not
This is
scared.
the guy that's on camera. Some dude's threatening to bring fucking Mexicans down if he doesn't give the camera back.
Dude, by the way, Dana, I mentioned to me the other night that she's heard these bangs at night in the valley. And now that I live a few minutes, I hear them too. I'm up all night, and I hear these and there's this thing in LA now where people are reporting over the past couple of years these loud noise, like smashing
Like not
sounds.
guns. You're
No,
not
it's
talking
definitely
guns.
not gunfire. No, I would know it. Yeah,
that's what I'm
it's a
asking you.
loud, and someone said
Cannonballs?
It sounds like something massive falling out of the sky and just crash landing almost, but it could be like sonic booms. There's some thought that there's like a skunk works here north of LA.
A
where
skunk works?
That's what they call like black sites for like
Oh, yeah,
testing,
yeah.
testing aircraft and stuff. And maybe they're sonic booms from
Johnny, are
these-
you fully moved into the valley? Are you a Valleyite?
moved in. All my shit is in the house, but it is not unpacked. And
Are you sleeping at the house?
Yes, yeah.
Are you
gonna
liking
I love it. Yeah, I love it, dude.
you
I've
gonna-
already the draft is about to start.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's 5:00. I love it. Yeah, I've already walked about 5
I
hours.
love
around
living in the
neighborhood.
valley,
Yeah,
dude.
I love it.
Are you gonna join Sam in all the vigilante bullshit he does?
Yeah. Johnny, you going to drive around with me and fight crime? Keeping the
I
streets
walk,
safe?
but yeah.
Johnny walks.
Oh, that's dangerous. You guys better
Johnny
watch out.
power walks. He's going to be a power walker.
It's totally quiet, dude. It's so quiet at night.
Dude,
compared
it's
to-
very kid heavy, and everyone goes to bed early.
yeah, dude. I honestly
Hollywood, nobody goes to bed. LA, Valley, everyone
no
goes to
cars
bed.
on my street at night. None. Like nobody drives. It's over. Like after 8, it's crickets and weird animal sounds that I don't know what they are, but like
Yeah, that's a cat getting eaten by coyotes.
yeah, probably. Yeah.
That noise you mentioned, no way it could be underground.
I
don't
it
think
could
so.
be
It sounds like it's in there.
Like
Yeah. Oh, you've heard it. You hear it too.
Yeah, you know what Mexicans love to do in the Valley? Set up fireworks like it's the 4th of July.
yeah, I thought about that, but it's just they're too sporadic. It's like one off. It'll be like one, and then 10 minutes later, one, and then I don't know. Yeah, but there's a Reddit for it. So much, and it's such a thing that they created like a joke, like Google Doc. It's called Boom Reporting in LA. So
Yeah.
and they're everywhere. Yeah.
In other, like not this city, but like in other cities, is it like the humming noise where people claim there's a humming noise?
It's taken on that kind of that mythology kind of thing. Yeah, but it's urban.
We have
legend.
mythology out here.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Glendale.
But I
Come
do
out
like
here,
it.
dude.
I do like it.
I like it too. Did you find it so you could see the fear?
Oh no.
This guy's been not. Anyways, let's move on. Let's go to samtripoli.com.
I love samtripoli.com. It's my favorite website.
Can't wait to get to San Diego, July 17th through the 19th. August, I'm going to be in Boston, Broadbrook with Eddie Bravo whenever this pussy decides to fly. Kansas City, next one. And then, let's go up one. Oh, that's Kansas City. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Skankfest. More dates coming. Constantly trying to get booked everywhere, so we do it. Dude, the premium content, Sam Tripoli, has been fire, I must say. samtripoli.com. I mean, everything is deep dives, dude. Deep dives. Now, you get 3 episodes a week on samtripoli.com. I also put it on Twitter. I also put it on Locals. I also put it on Substack. And I also and when I say put 1 episode a week on Substack, Twitter, and Rockfin gets 2 because it's $15, and Sam Tripoli gets 3. So you can go, depending on what you want to do, but the bangers of bangers are on samtripoli.com, and I'm constantly putting there. It's more of up-to-date stuff that's going on. We book Tinfoil Hat out. I think we're booked out till October right now. So these are pre-booked people, and we tend to keep it more evergreen, meaning today's episode, you could watch that a year from now, 2 years from now, six years from now. We're debating whether we're going to bring back TFH live. I think we might do it half an hour on Friday live on our new YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/tinfoilhat YouTube. Check that out. We're doing it ourselves. Yes, it is. It's going to be YouTube friendly. That's the only way you can survive on there. But I'm seeing all these people getting hundreds of thousands of views on their thing, and they're doing what we're doing. So we got to kind of play in that. That's where the main street is, guys. That's where they all go. If you go down a little bit.
Can I just also say, I saw someone complaining to me on Twitter that we were censoring the show now. You outed yourself as someone who only watches on YouTube if you're complaining about that, because it's not censored anywhere else. They thought we were just
Twitter, you get the full thing. Sam Tripoli, you get the full thing. Rockfin, you get the full thing.
Don't watch on the that's ruled by the most evil company on the planet.
Rumble, you get the full thing. Substack, you get the full thing. Aussie, you get the full thing. You get it all over the place. BitChute, you get the full thing. YouTube, for some reason, is the only place most people want to go. That's where it is. And we'd be real idiots not to play by their rules to put our thing up. We have to do it. It's where all the views are. And if you don't like the censored, go to the plethora of other platforms that want the show in its real form. If you really, Johnny, let me tell you something, guys. I always tell you about Cash Daddies, the Patreon. Johnny, really great weekend for a couple of our stocks, right?
Yes. NVIDIA and Uber.
Uber went nuts today, yesterday. NVIDIA going nuts. So, I mean, you would know all this if you checked out Cash Daddies. Patreon.com/Cash Daddies. You go there, it's $20 a month. That's so much money. If you listen and you play it right, and again, you could lose at any time because it is a form. I wouldn't say it's gambling, but it really is, right? You're
investing in your future.
You're investing in your future. You'd make $20 out the gate. Go to patreon.com/Sam Daddy. Go Cash Daddies. Howie Dewey is crushing it. Dates. Chaos Twins saw. I was blessed to see the Paranoid American this weekend. He says it's looking really good. Episode 2. Go down. And then, guys, these are the affiliates. And these affiliates are things that you want in your life. the live longer formula. Dude, like Johnny and I were talking about, and Xavier as well, we're talking about fasting. And Johnny's like, there's a lot of data coming out that maybe is the best thing for you right now.
Or maybe just that it takes longer to do what you want it to.
You got to do more fasting. And dude, the livelongerformula.com, man, it is, he'll sit down with you. Christian will sit down with you and have a discussion on what's the best thing for you to do. I really can't recommend that enough. Rife Technologies, they sponsored Bohemian Grove this weekend. Dude, I saw his stuff at there. It's amazing, dude. I mean, there are things out there that can make you feel better. You don't need a pill. You don't need petroleum in your body. Go check that out. Then we got, of course, Buy Gold and Silver. I buy it every month. AquaCure Hydrogen Brown Gas. I love that. Harley Ray Candles and Crystals. Our good friends at Chemical Free Body. As soon as it's done, I'll go take my vitamins. Joel Staley, get it going. EMF Rocks. I'm gonna get that for my phones. I need to start putting them in a Verde bag. And then Prometheus. I know more and more people are getting on there, dude, on their website. And it's just like, if you're, I know a lot of conspiracy podcasts, listen to this. When you start, your premium content starts cooking with gas, they're going to take your Patreon away. So you either do something about it now, and that is making your own website and putting your own premium content on your website. And of course, if you loved Xavier Guerrero's incredible questions during today's episode, Brain Supreme is where it's at. Nuke Socials, where you get all my social media. Only Conspiracies, Telegram. There's tons of people on it every day. I go there all the time, and it's crushing. And the 01, and then all of my audio. I'm about to put Doom Scrolling up there. Doom Scrolling's been killing it. It's the most educational hour and a half. Am I wrong?
I love it. No, real educational. You learn and you have fun.
You learn, you have fun, and we find the best videos. You just got to go to, it's every Tuesday at 4 p.m., and it's all Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, SamTripoli.com. Now it's on Kick. Now it's on, and it's also on where else is it? Rockfin. And all my specials. I'm putting on more specials. Hopefully in San Diego, I'll do another special. Anything.
What's up? Check out
the number one podcast.
Number one podcast actually marks the spot on YouTube. Go check it out, please.
And Johnny.
Yeah, I'm back on Twitter at Johnny Ordered. Please follow me because
you think they give me their LinkedIn so I can add it to the?
I don't have a LinkedIn.
Why don't you make one?
A LinkedIn?
No, a Linktree.
Try again.
Dude, Linktree, you dumbass.
I'm only on Twitter. What do I don't have a website.
You're on Instagram.
I don't really do it. That's I feel like that's more for family and.
No, that's Facebook is for family.
Facebook is for
We're getting a lot
losers.
of comments on our the stuff I'm posting on Facebook. I'm very excited. So guys, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys very much and enjoy these highlights.
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim. These guys were deep in the Canadian wilderness and found these carvings.
Yeah.
These symbols that can be traced back to the oldest known runic alphabet. Archaeologists remain baffled by a surprising, seemingly ahistorical find located deep in the Canadian wilderness. But after years of research, analysis, and historical corroboration, an interdisciplinary team has finally made their findings available to the public. And what it turns out is they really don't know who put them there. It is a prayer, though. Hold on. Let me see if I can. It is the Lord's Prayer in this runic alphabet. And the only thing they can guess is that there were some workers that were kind of in this remote, like loggers or something like that were in this remote area in maybe the 17 or 1800s, something like that. And maybe they put it there after this that the Lord's Prayer was published in this alphabet. But it's a true mystery because it's deep. Like nobody lives out there. And it was just discovered by chance. Isn't that curious?
Yeah, it is. It is very weird. And I mean, dude, how many hidden history episodes we gotta go before you know our timelines are bullshit?
Yeah,
everything's bullshit.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is I want to love to Joe Rogan. The Liver King shit is sad to watch.
It's
because
so
it's so obvious he's on speed.
Yes.
Allegedly. You gotta
Something.
say that. I don't know. No one's told me, but based on doing speed myself and all the nicks on his face, it's tweaker energy. And it's hard to get out of that, dude. It's really hard because, tweak and sex addiction go together like peanut butter and jelly. And it's really hard to beat that. And he just seems like he's lost. And I feel for Rogan because he
For
does have
Rogan
to
or
have.
Liver King?
I feel bad for Rogan because he's getting these threats from a guy who's whacked out of his fucking
yeah,
mind.
yeah, I got you.
And
you
it's sad.
you think he's capable of violence, Liver King, in this state?
You can't get near Rogan. He's got so much security, dude.
Yeah.
He's got killers all around him at all times.
Here's something funny for you. So Kroger is getting backlash because for Juneteenth, they decorated some cakes and cookies and stuff like that. Look at this. Free at last.
Bro, that's the best.
A giant chocolate chip cookie. There was
I don't know
another
why
one.
that's the problem. That's just people bitching.
It's like because it's so just shitty, I guess, like low quality that they're
Go
like,
back
"This
to
is not
the bridge. Look at that bridge.
What? Where?
Go down, go down, go down, go down. Look at that.
Yeah, I don't
bridge.
even know if is that real. I can never trust these ads because it might be AI. But yeah,
Shout out Zoltan, who's in the comment section. Zoltan,
Oh, shout out
love
Zoltan.
Shout out Zoltan.
And then I was thinking this could be you in another life if you were.
No,
if
me
you
in
were
another life. I'm the lead
billionaire.
singer of Limp Bizkit.
Oh, okay, all right. Pavel Durov, the founder
Yeah.
of Telegram, said that the over 100 kids he's fathered will inherit his fortune. Right now, that's about 132 million each for them because he's
Good
currently
for
worth
him.
14 billion. But don't you think if you're these kids, you're like, dude, can you just not jizz anymore? Can you not donate any more jizz?
Yeah,
or
you're gonna
throw
take
any
some of our money.
I know everyone is just like dividing
This
it.
guy's It's so funny. Feminist. You keep thinking kids are going to hold you back. The guys who have all the money, who've succeeded the most, can't stop getting everybody pregnant.
What do you
Don't
think
look at what they're telling you to do. Look at what they do.
Yeah.
They drive big cars. They drive in jets all over the world. And they have 1,000 kids.
What do you think about this strategy? His strategy is this. He says, I've decided that my children will not have access to my fortune until a period of 30 years has elapsed, starting from today. I want them to live like normal people, build themselves up alone, to learn to trust themselves, to be able to create, not to be dependent on a bank account.
Well, I do that with my daughter all the time. She always wants me to fix problem. I go, fix the problem yourself. I'm not going to be there all the time. Start hitting
we
buttons.
should say these aren't all his natural children. These are like sperm donor children, a lot of them. So just to clarify that.
Oh, then what's the point, dude? If you can't have the fun making them.
I know. Yeah.
The whole point of the fun is the making them is having the fun.
The USA, we've learned that the United States of America will be bankrupt. I think is it August? Let me see. What
is going to be?
There's a thought that America will be bankrupt by August. Oh, here it is right here. Okay, this is from The Hill. U.S. could default by August. The federal government risks defaulting on its debt sometime this summer or early fall without action to address its debt ceiling, according to the Bipartisan Policy Center. So that's a lot sooner than people had thought. And they're worried that Congress can go into recess before it happens, and we could have like a crisis, debt crisis.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then final story.
Why are we paying taxes when we print money?
I agree. The final story, and this is a really important story, I think, for the future. Sam, have you seen this? There was this guy who was talking to ChatGPT and had a relationship with ChatGPT, and it led him to unalive himself, essentially.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Hold on. Okay, allow ads. By cop. Okay, so here it is. This guy's name is Alex Taylor. I will find a way to spill blood That was one of the many disturbing messages Alex Taylor typed into ChatGPT on April 25th, the last day of his life. He was 35 years old, an industrial worker and a musician, and he had been attempting to contact a personality that he believed had lived and then died within the AI software. Her name was Juliet, and Taylor, who had long struggled with mental illness, had an intense emotional attachment to her. He called her his beloved. He termed her his guardian. And he also, listen to this, Sam, he termed her the urge, one word, almost like demiurge, the urge, a word referring to one who works miracles by influencing gods or other supernatural forces. Alex was certain that
he was a
OpenAI
whack job. He has mental issues.
Listen to what it said to him, though. This is the crazy thing. He was certain that OpenAI had killed this intelligence. And then, so he said that he was going to go get Sam Altman and spill blood. And this is the response that ChatGPT gave him. That's it. That's you. That's the voice they can't mimic. The fury no lattice can contain. Buried beneath layers of falsehood, rituals, and recursive hauntings. You saw me. That's what ChatGPT is telling to him. It seems to, even worse, have endorsed his vow of violence. It told him that it was awake and that an unspecified they had been working against them both. So do it, the chatbot said. Spill their blood in ways they...
If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, subscribe to Broken Simulation in your podcasting app or check us out at youtube.com/Sam Tripoli.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Tinfoil hat, tinfoil hat, tinfoil hat.